What if you take a little of Inglourious Bastards and then throw in zombies? Well, you'd get the Spanish film Valley of the Dead, or Malnazidos. This came out in 2020, but Netflix has purchased the distribution rights and put their name on it. So is it something you should be checking out? Months after bloody combats leave behind thousands of dead in the trenches, a captain of the Fifth Brigade has fallen prisoner by an opponent's platoon while carrying out a mission entrusted to him. The possibility of being executed will soon be overtaken when a new, unknown enemy arises. Both rival sides must unite and set their mutual hate aside in order to survive. So as I said, this has some small parts of Inglourious Bastards, where we have this rogue group of soldiers who are kind of ragtag and they go by code names. Now, they're resistance fighters battling against the Spanish fascists, who are then sort of fighting alongside with the Nazis. Han, a loudmouth and cocky captain, he gets captured during a mission, but all the adversarial tensions have to take a massive backseat when they encounter soldiers who have been turned into zombies. The story then transitions into a chase scenario, where the group is trying to get through an infested forest to arrive at a place that they hope will provide safety. Now, I like the look of this for the most part. The cinematography showcases some great landscapes, and a lot of the time it frames our characters well. And as you can probably imagine, when the group encounters zombies, the action, it can become pretty harried. And I like that it's not all a ton of quick cutaways in the action where we don't really get to see anything that's happening. There is some of that, and at times the cuts can be excessive, but there are other portions that allow us to watch the attacks coming on, and then we can witness the scope of a fight. The gore isn't excessive, but it's present and violent. And the effects are actually pretty decent as well, where we'll see a lot of blood spray in the air as just bodies are pummeled with bullets. Now, from a zombie perspective, this is pretty run-of-the-mill. The undead aren't fast, and they just kind of amble towards their prey. I do like that they arrive in hordes, which can create some excitement, but there wasn't really ever any anxiety or tension that was created by them. I felt more unease between the different groups of soldiers who were traveling together. The real danger lay in their clashing ideals. Some of the characters felt like they could be a bit rash in their actions, which would then lead to more of a scuffle between them. And I really liked this angle, even if their insults did get a little tiresome. I think what also led to the lack of tension with the zombies is that they feel very spread out and then contained. I mean, sure, there's always a threat of a larger outbreak, but that wasn't too much of the focus, leaving them to be only threatening in immediate situations. And the soldiers were also kept strangers to us. We gained some insight into a few of them, making them a bit more sympathetic, but on the whole, I wasn't really concerned with whether or not they lived or died. So any sense of peril, while it may be exciting, didn't have any lasting anxiety or dread. And unfortunately, so many of the character arcs became very predictable. So when you take into account that we're not too invested in their outcomes and then make their actions and outcomes pretty obvious, the story, it just kind of becomes boring, even when there is some exciting action that's sprinkled throughout. The film is an hour and 40 minutes, but it felt much longer than that. I think it's mainly due to the lack of character investment and then story apprehension. Had there been more action, perhaps it would have felt faster, but I'd much rather have more character development and story depth to really draw me in and make me care. That would have created an atmosphere where I'm fearful for the players, and I wouldn't have noticed the time at all. Because, I mean, come on, it's not a long movie, and I shouldn't have felt the time. I gotta say that even though there's not much depth given on the characters, there were a couple that stood out to me. Now, there's this young soldier named De Cruz who's crafty, but he also has this naivete to him, which then makes him kind of endearing. There's an innocence to his persona, and his inexperience really keeps him in the background of the story, but there are small moments where he gets to shine. Now, another run of the fighters, Mecha, is cocky and off-putting for a bunch of this, but there are two distinct points where he had awesome character moments, making me like the growth that he displayed. As I mentioned before, even though a couple of the characters did stand out to me, they're all basically forgettable because of how little development we get on them. Now, the story assumes that we'll feel a connection because they're under threat and that we've been following their story throughout the movie. But really, I was hard-pressed to care when it came to life and death situations. I wanted this to be a better movie. The action is fun and the story can be a bit engaging, but because the story lacks the ability to fully draw me in with an impactful arc and then charismatic characters, the entire thing becomes a bland watching experience. So overall, Valley of the Dead has an intriguing premise and some good action sequences. The cinematography is enjoyable and the fight choreography is engaging at times. Unfortunately, though, the characters and the story are lackluster, never creating an atmosphere of dread or peril. Anxiety and tension are assumed to be present because of the chase that our characters are experiencing, but the feelings are not earned, creating sequences that are uninspired and without suspense. Now, this film doesn't do anything new for the war or zombie genres, and the pace drags despite the relatively short runtime. I'd just skip this one unless you really need to watch a zombie movie with a World War II backdrop. There's no sex or nudity, a lot of profanity, and then, obviously, a ton of violence. I give Valley of the Dead 2 out of 5 couches. So what's a zombie film that you really enjoy? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.